even though it's the 3rd of Adar, Rosh Chodesh Tov, we're going to do today a special class for the laws of Megillah and the laws of Purim. And Be'ezat Hashem, I want to dedicate this class to our sponsor, Mr. Cohen from Maryland in Washington. Le'ilui Nishmat, for the honor of his mother's neshama, Monbar Menora Bat David, Zichron Tzadeket Livracha, and in honor of his brother, Avner Eliyahu Ben Yaakov Cohen, Zichron Tzaddik Livracha. I also want to dedicate this class to all our soldiers. Be'ezat Hashem, Hashem will protect them, and all the hostages, Hashem will bring them home safely. And Be'ezat Hashem to all the wounded and the sick people that needs Refuah SHELEMAH, and Narafan Lahem and Narafan Lahem. So, we're doing the HALCHOT of Megillah and Purim from the Shulchan Aruch. So it says, הלכות מגילה, משנכנס אדר מרבים בשמחה, וישראל שיש לו דין ודברים עם גוי ישפט עמו בחודש זה. So the Shulchan Aruch says, when you come to Adar, you have to be in simcha. By the way, this amazing verse, משנכנס אדר בשמחה, it's written by none other than the Tzeitzah, the grandson of Haman Rasha, Yimach Shemo V'Shem Zichro. This rabbi was actually Rabbi Shemuel Bar Shilat. Rabbi Akiva actually was in the time of Rabbi Akiva, and his name was Bar Shilat, Shmuel Bar Shilat. The Tanaim asked him, what's Shilat? We heard Shmuel, but what's Shilat? Shilat says, Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid. So he says, when Adar is coming, you be happy. And he says, if the people of Israel have any legal matters against goys and you have to go to court and whatnot, this is the best months to go. It's why? Because Hashem, as we know, saved the people of Israel in Persia at the time, with Haman. So it says, בימי מרדכי ואסתר נקהלו היהודים ב13 לחודש אדר. לעמוד על נפשן. The Shulchan Aruch says that in the days of Mordechai and Esther, the Jewish people gathered on the 13th of Adar. Why? To guard themselves against the decree of Haman. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved them. But what did they do? It says that they actually fasted, they prayed, and they gave tzedakah. So we know they fasted for 3 days. And we know that, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hetzilam miyadam, Hashem saved them because of that. That's why we have the fast of Esther on the 13th of Adar. And this year it's come, if I'm not mistaken, on the Thursday, and then Friday we have Purim, and the Shabbat is Shushan Purim. So it says that even Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was fighting with Amalek, Moshe Rabbeinu also fasted. When the people of Israel came out of Egypt, and the Amalek came to them in Refidim. Of course, we know that Moshe went up to pray, and the part of winning was for Moshe to pray, but also he fasted. It says the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Zichron Tzaddik Livracha, and he said, "Lachen kiblu kol Israel yom ze leta'anit tzibur." For that, the people of Israel are fasting, and of course, we know it says, אין תענית זו חובה כמו כל 4 תעניות. We have in the Torah 4 fasts that we have to fast. But this, it was from the Rabbanan, it was added later on. It says that, people that, everybody need to fast, but people that don't need to fast are people, for an example, women, pregnant women that just had a baby and are, breastfeed their baby, or a very sick person, or somebody that cannot see well, she'em mitztarim ba'em lo itanu, something that makes them very sorrow, they don't have to fast. And of course, it says that kol ashara beri'im, everybody that's healthy need to fast. And it says, afilu mi she'olech bederech v'kasha alav ha'ta'anit mikol makom tzarech litanot. Even if you're traveling, back in the old days, used to people ride, horses or carriages or donkeys from city to city. Even though they were traveling, they needed to fast on that day. And of course, it says, if Purim happened on Sunday, you bring the fast earlier to Thursday. And if you have a Brit Milah, you have to do the Brit Milah first the Seudah at night, as we know. and then the Brit Milah in the morning. And it says that, even though it's a fast day, Ta'anit Ester, the person that hold the baby, the sandak, and the father of the baby, they're allowed to eat a little bit, and then they can fast on the next day. If, let's say, somebody forgot to fast on Thursday, like we have this year, he needs to fast on Friday. It says, לכבוד המגילה יש ללבוש בגדי שבת מבערב. If in order to read the Megillah, you need to dress up like you dress for Shabbat in the evening. And of course, we know that we read the Megillah on the evening and the next day in the morning. And of course, it says that it's good that when he comes from the shul back to his home from Beit HaKnesset, ימצא בביתו נרות דולקים ושולחן ערוך ומיטה מוצעת. They say that it's good that, even like, it's not Shabbat, is to prepare the house like it's Shabbat in the evening of the reading of the Megillah. And of course, it says, וקוראים את המגילה ואחר כך אומרים ואתה קדוש. As we know in the מזמור, למנצח על איילת השחר. The Tehillim, למנצח על איילת השחר, this is about really Ester HaMalka, Esther and Mordechai. It says, דאמר רבי יהושע בן לוי חייב אדם לקרוא את המגילה בלילה ולשנותה ביום. So we read it in the evening and then the next morning. Of course, it says that the essence of why in the evening and then in the morning is because it says Vayi Erev, Vayi Boker, Yom Echad. First, the day starts in the evening after the 3 stars. And of course, after that, you have to say Kaddish Shalem. without תתקבל מוצא שבת ויהי נועם ואתה קדוש וקדיש שלם ולא תתקבל וייתן לך and then הוא מבדילין על הכוס. So it says that נוהגים ליתן קודם פורים מחצית מן המטבע הקבוע. So we have the מחצית השקל that we obligated to give before Purim. We know last Shabbat we was Shabbat Shekalim. We had 3 Sifrei Torah. We had 1 Sefer Torah for Parashat HaShavua, 1 Sefer Torah for Rosh Chodesh Adar, and then we had a parasha of Zechor et Asher Asa Lecha Amalek, Parashat HaShekalim, to remind us that we have to give machatzit hashekel, half a shekel. Why we give half? Because, a person should always feel like he's only half. Without Hashem, is only half, is not full. And of course, it says, נוהגים ליתן קודם פורים מחצית מן המטבע הקבוע במקום ואותו זמן זכר למחצית השקל. So as we are bringing this minhag of halacha to bring מחצית השקל because we know Haman later on will give shekalim, 10,000 of them to Achashverosh to try to kill the Jewish people in 127 countries. This is when we give machatzit. By the way, the word machatzit has 2 words, mavet and chai, and then tzaddik in the middle. So if you're a tzaddik, you move the death and you receive chaim. Machatzit, right? It has met and chai and then tzaddik. So somehow, yes, in minhagim, it says to give 3 halves, shalosh machatziot. Why? It says because in the parashat Ki Tisa, it says 3 times the word teruma. ונותנים בערב לפני קריאת המגילה ומחלקים אותם לעניים. So we give those, in addition to that, we give what we call matanot la'evyonim. We give it to the poor people as a teruma. That's before we read the Megillah, and then you give it to the poor people. A young person less than bar mitzvah is not obligated to hear the Megillah or to read the Megillah, but it's good to train them, their children, when they're young, to hear the Megillah. And it says that when the father gives the shekalim, it doesn't have to give in the name on the behalf of his son if he's not bar mitzvah yet, but it's a beautiful mitzvah to do. And it says ve'im aviv natan bishvilo pa'am achat chayav le'olam. If let's say the father decided to give tzedakah one time when the boy was 11, from that moment on, for the rest of his life, the father have to give machatzit hashekel in honor of his son. Of course, if the son gives, it's the same thing. Of course, it says you have to give it. There is a caveat to it. and עד שיהיה בן 20, he says if the boy reached the year 20, the father is not obligated to give more. So we see here, it says, בפורים, ערבית, שחרית ומנחה אומרים על הניסים. And he forgot, you have the same law of Hanukkah. חייב כל אדם בין איש ובין אישה לשמוע קריאת מגילה בלילה וביום. Every person, men and women, have to hear the Megillah read at night and in the morning. You know, you have to hear. The halacha is mitzvah to hear. לשמוע קריאת מגילה. And even the Shulchan Aruch says even the young daughters, the virgin, they need to go to shul and hear the Megillah. And if they cannot go to shul, they need to have somebody come and read to them at home. And he says, לכן צריכים לקרוא לפניהם בבית. ואם את הקטנים חייבים לחנך אותם, is a mitzvah to teach the young ones before bar mitzvah to hear the Megillah. This way, they hear it. But if they're too young, if let's say you have kids, toddlers that make a lot of noise, don't bring them to shul, the halacha says. Why? Because the mebalbelim da'at hashomeim, they make too much noise and then people cannot hear the Megillah. You have to hear every word of the Megillah. It's good to have your own Megillah and follow. If you don't have a Megillah, you can take the Chumash and read from the Chumash together with the Chazan or Baal Koreh, whoever reads the Megillah. It says, Megillah של לילה, אסור לקרוא קודם צאת הכוכבים. You're not allowed to read the Megillah before 3 stars came out. Because, you know, we fast on that day. And of course, you cannot eat only after you heard the Megillah. Okay? But if you are very, very thirsty, you can have a little coffee, a little water, just to be strong, to be able to hear the Megillah and attend the reading. It says, מצווה מן המובחר לשמוע את המגילה בבית כנסת. Is very, very nice to do hidur mitzvah, to make the mitzvah, to hear that in a shul or in a synagogue. It's better to do that. Why? Because it says, מפני שיש רוב אנשים. It says, משום דבר עם הדרת מלך. It says that, you know, when you have so many people, it's a mitzvah to go to a bigger minyan to hear the Megillah with more people. It says that a person needs to read it together with the Koreh, Baal Koreh, for Megillah Keshera. As we know, on the first night we have the brachot, we do before, and then bracha after. And you have to really, if you can afford, buy your own Megillah from a beautiful cloth parchment, kosher parchment, in order to read it together. It says that ואם יודע לקרותה והשאר אינם יודעים, יקרא זה שיודע. Let's say you happen to be, I don't know, maybe a cruise and there is 10 Jews and you know to read better than everybody. You should be the one taking the lead. As we said, במקום שאין איש, היה איש. When there is no man, be the man. And read the Megillah for everybody. And of course, it says that והם ישמעו ויוצאים. People that you read can hear it and yotzei chovah, and then by you reading them and they hear, they made the mitzvah. Of course, en omrim rak be'asara. You know, when you do the blessings, you have to have 10 people. Ve'ach belo shemalchut yachol gam yachid. But if you're alone and you, let's say you happen to not be able to be in a minyan, you can do the blessing with not the name of Hashem, Shem Malchut. It says, Minhag kol Israel she'akore eno kore mitoch Megillah krucha. So, you know, when the Baal Koreh, the Chazan, the cantor, open the Megillah, it has to fold it like a Megillah. You cannot have it, you know, just rolled into the one side and then open it. It has to really open all of it and layer in like layers. And every time he read one, he moves. And of course, we know that in the Megillah, it says, פושט אותה וכופלה דף על דף כמו איגרת, מפני שנקראת איגרת הפורים. And of course, this is an obligation just for the Chazan, the Baal Koreh, not for everybody. And it says, הקורא את המגילה בין יום ובין לילה מברך לפניה 3 ברכות. As we said, if you read at night or in the day, the one that read the Megillah has to do 3 blessings. The first one is al mikra Megillah, to read the Megillah. The second one, She'asa Nisim, that made us miracles to our forefathers, and She'echiyanu v'kimanu v'gianu lazman hazeh. And then after you finish, Mevarchin birkat harav v'trivenu. אבל אם קורא את המגילה יברך את הברכות משום ברכת שהחיינו. Of course, if you've done it, before, you don't need the שהחיינו on the next day. בברכת שהחיינו של יום, יכוון גם על מצוות משלוח מנות. It says, as we know, we have to give also מתנות לאביונים, that's tzedakah, truma, money enough for them to buy a meal. And mishloach manot is to send full meals to at least 2 people. And Seudat Purim, and to make a Seuda, a meal for Seudat Mitzvah for Purim. וכן שליח ציבור צריך שיכוון והוציא את הציבור על ידי מצוות אלו. When the Baal Koreh, the Shliach Tzibur means he's a messenger of the people, the public. So he has to be very, very careful reading everything correctly. Practice a lot before, so because if you made a change in one vowel, you can change the whole understanding of the word. So this says that you have to, of course, by doing that, he makes everybody יוצא חובה. הקורא את המגילה צריך לכוון להוציא את השומעים. You have to have in mind when you are the cantor or the chazan or of the Baal Koreh that's about to read the Megillah, you have to have in mind that the public that's in there, in your synagogue or wherever, the home, whatever they may be, you have to have kavanah, you have to have the understanding that you are their messenger to bring them to fulfill this mitzvah, of course. And it says, afilu, if God forbid, you didn't hear one word, if you're not yotze, you have to read it again. לכן צריך הקורא להשגיח מאוד. It says that the Baal Koreh, the cantor has to be very careful, make sure that everybody's quiet, because in some congregation they make a lot of noise when you say Haman, Yimach Shmo v'Shem Zichro. Today we have Khomeini. Khomeini is Haman of today. And you have to make sure everybody is silent and then continue the reading so everybody can read. And as we said before, if you have your own Megillah, it's good that you say the words with the chazan, word by word, very softly, just only for you to hear. And then you won't miss any of the words from the Megillah. וכן כל אישה חכמת לב שעומדת בעזרת נשים, women, even though they are in the section of the women, if they can, to have for them a Megillah to read from it, in order to, hear everything and read everything together. And as we said before, everybody is obligated, men and women, in the reading of the Megillah, except the few that we mentioned, that if they're sick or pregnant or whatever the case may be, they not have to. Okay? And he says, if let's say the evening comes and you're reading the Megillah, if you didn't do Kiddush HaLevana, if let's say the same evening, Kiddush HaLevana, the blessing of the moon, it needs to be done from the 8th through the end of the 15th of the month. Because on the 8th day of the month, the Levana is big enough for you to say it. And of course, if it's summertime and there's no clouds, the best is to do it on the 15th when it is completely full on the 14th of night of the 15th. And it says, if the Levana nirata b'shat kriyat ha-Megillah, first you finish the Megillah and then you do the Birkat HaLevana. HaKoreh, the person that reads, צריך שיאמר 10 בני המן וגם תיבת 10, הכל בנשימה אחת. It said that the Baal Koreh needs to read all the names of Haman, his children, in Machshmam v'Shem Zichram, in one breath, in one time. And בדיעבד, אפילו הפסיק בין 10 המן יצא. If let's say you can, you have to breathe in between, you read 4 or 5 and then you have to take a breath and read the rest, that's okay. You don't have to repeat and try to do it all in one breath. מכל מקום זה שנוהגים בקצה מקומות של כל אדם, אומרים 10 בני המן. אינו מנהג נכון. In some congregation, they say the Shulchan Aruch, if all the tzibur, the public, reads together the whole 10, the children of Aman, is not a good thing to do. You have to be quiet and listen to Baal Koreh. Levad, he says, only the Koreh levad yomram. והקהל ישמעו כמו כל המגילה. כשאומר הקורא בלילה, ההוא נדדה. He says, when we say בלילה ההוא נדדה שנת המלך, יגביה קולו, you have to raise your voice. שם מתחיל עיקר הנס. It's really the beginning of the ness. You know, the miracle is very, very interesting. You know, this week is Parashat Tetzaveh. Parashat Tetzaveh, we know that the name of Moshe does not appear. Right? Ve'ata Tetzaveh. He doesn't say V'daber Hashem el Moshe. No, the whole parasha of Tetzaveh, no name of Moshe appears. Hashem does chesed with Moshe in the entire Megillah. His name doesn't appear. You won't find the name of Hashem, Yud He Vav He or Adonut, but there's a secret to it. So we know that in Sephardic Megillot, on the top right of every page, every blot, there is 10 chapters, we know, in the Megillah, that the first word on the right, top right of every parchment is HaMelech. HaMelech is Hashem. Every time it says HaMelech is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not King Achashverosh. So we know to know that. And of course, it says, Mishir lefanav Megillah psula, o chumash, lo yikraim shaliach tzibur. If you have a Megillah that's not kosher, or the chumash in missing pages not kosher, you need to just listen to the Korah. You cannot read from those, because you can make a mistake, and of course you won't be making the mitzvah of the Megillah. So you have to listen to the Baal Koreh and lechaven, and you have to have in mind that he is your shliach tzibur. And of course, don't help anybody. Let the shliach tzibur do his job so everybody can hear. Don't talk during this reading of the Megillah. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, there is 1,523 words in the Megillah, and you have to hear all of them. It says, "Mi shekvar yatsa bekriyat Megillah vekoreh leotzi acher." Let's say you already read and you came home and your wife says, we have 10 women here that needs to hear the Megillah, and it has to bless again. Even though you heard the Megillah, it needs to bless. Now, if there is a woman that can read the Megillah better than the man, it says, Yevarech v'omer asher kedishanu tzivanu lishmoa Megillah. Even if it's a woman reading, she has to bless. As we know on Shabbat that it's not Purim, mutarin letaltel et Megillah. If you have an Eruv and if it's, and there is a Shabbat, but it's not Purim, you want to bring the Megillah to Shul, it says mutarin letaltel. You're okay with that? Mikol makom, but always know, if Purim begins on Sunday, do not bring the Megillah on Shabbat to the Shul. Even if you have a full and perfect Eruv, the have mechin meshabat lechol, that you're preparing from holy to mundane, even though it's a holiday. If you have a congregation that does not have a cantor that can read the Megillah with all the ta'amim, and if you don't have somebody who can read the Megillah correctly, you can read without ta'amim, but you have to read the words correctly with the correct vowels. And of course, as we said, the most important thing is to read it correctly. Why? Because you don't change the understanding of every word or a sentence in this matter. And of course, he says that she'im kara bimkom Mordechai Yoshev, and you say Yashav. Yoshev is currently, Yashav is in the past. O bimkom veHaman Nofel, you write Haman Nafal, is a big mistake. So you have to be very careful to know how to read the Megillah and use the correct vowels. And of course, if you know the melody, the ta'amim, read it decently. And of course, he says that after all said and done, that the Baal Koreh needs to read it and make sure that he reads correctly for everybody. And of course, like we said, if you don't have a Baal Koreh, you read it correctly to yourself or to your family. If there is a congregation that does not have a Megillah, completely that is kesherah, that is kosher Megillah, that is written on a parchment, like the halacha says. And let's say you don't have that, but you have another Megillah that is written on parchment, but it's missing a word or two in the middle. You can still read and make sure that you can add the word that's missing. Even if it's not kosher, you need to do the blessing on it. And of course, and the word that's missing, have a chumash next to you and make sure that you read this word that's missing from the Megillah. And it says, קוראים מתוך החומש כל אחד בפני עצמו. As we said before, everybody needs to read from the chumash if they don't have a Megillah. ואין מברכים. If you don't have a Megillah, you don't bless. ויחיד שיש לו רק מגילה פסולה, if a person has a Megillah but it's not kosher, he reads to himself or herself without blessing. You know, if God forbid you lost somebody, you have Evel, you are in mourning during the, have the Shiva during the Purim. Noheg bekol Dina Avelut. It says that you have to maintain the law of Avelut if you are in mourning for the 7 days. Asur lirot kol mine simcha. It cannot be in any simcha, even putting shoes of leather, as we know, or sit on a chair. But but if you need to wear the shoes, the sandal, and sit on the bench, it's okay. Why? Because it's מפני שהם דברים הנראים לכל. בלילה אם יכול לאסוף מניין בביתו, it's better if you bring people to read the Megillah in your house if you're in a week of mourning. And if you can, pray at home and then go to shul to hear the Megillah from the congregation, from the Chazan. ואם חל במוצאי שבת, ילך לבית הכנסת לאחר סעודה שלישית. Let's say you're in mourning and you want to go to shul, you have to go after the third meal of Shabbat, and during the day you go to the prayers of Arvit and to hear the Megillah in shul. If somebody died on the day of Ta'anit Ester, if God forbid somebody died on the 13th of Adar, Hu onen kodem agvura, as we know, before you bury the person, God forbid, you call the onen. And you actually can, before you bury the person, hear the Megillah from somebody else. Of course, you're not allowed to eat meat or drink wine, and you're not allowed to be part of the mishteh, the seudat mitzvah. ויום לאחר יציאת מבית הכנסת קוברים את המת. And you know, right after you come from shul, you have to bury the person that died. And of course, after you bury them, you can pray and read the Megillah or hear it from somebody else. And of course, a person that lost somebody, it says that is not allowed to put on tefillin even after the burial, because it's the first day of his mourning. And as we mentioned before, if it's not buried yet, you are allowed to have a mitzvah of meat and wine before you bury. Now, when the next day, when you read on Shachrit in the morning, you're reading, of course, the Megillah again, as we said, one in the night and one in the morning, the 13 and the 14 in the morning, the 13 at night. It says, משכימים לבית כנסת לאחר 18 עשה חצי קדיש. As we know, after 18, you are saying the חצי קדיש, and then you read in the Torah, בפרשה ויבוא עמלק. You have to have at least 3 men, 3 aliyot, if you have Kohen Levi in Israel. And then you say another חצי קדיש, and you put the Sefer Torah back in the ark, and then you read the Megillah. Why? Because tadir v'she'eno tadir, tadir kodem. So we know we have a law that if you need to read the Torah that day, if it falls on Monday or Thursday, you read the Torah first, then the Megillah, and no vice versa. And of course, אין אומרים בשחרית אשר הני, לאחר שסיים האל המושיע, אומרים שושנת יעקב, צהלה ושמחה. Then אומרים אשרי ובא לציון, and then full Kaddish with תתקבל. אין חולצים את התפילין עד לאחר קריאת המגילה. You're not allowed to take, like for example, when we do Hallel, right, in Rosh Chodesh, before we do the Musaf, we take our tefillin off, but if we don't, in the Megillah, you don't allow to take them off only after you read the Megillah. Why? משום דכתיב ויקר. It says, ויקר דרשנו אלו תפילין. So if there is a Brit Milah, if you have a mitzvah to do a Brit Milah, circumcision for your son on the 8th day, you do it before reading the Megillah in the morning. Why? Because it says Mishum Dichtiv Sason. First you have the Sason is the Milah. And of course it says in the cities that is surrounded by walls from the time of Joshua, Binun, you read the Megillah in the 15th, and not like the other countries and states. So that was the Megillah laws. HALCHOT משלוח מנות איש לרעהו מתנות לאביונים וסעודת פורים. So we say we have an obligation to send משלוח מנות to who? To your friend. איש לרעהו מתנות לאביונים, money, not let's say a tray of fruit or something. You have to give money to the evyonim, to the poor people. They need money, they'll buy whatever they need. And of course you have to do what we call סעודת פורים. And it says, חייב כל אדם לשלוח לכל הפחות לאדם אחד שתי מנות. The minimum obligation is to send one friend 2 meals. You cannot send in a couple crackers and whatnot. It has to be a full meal, or at least enough to enjoy a whole meal. 2 of them you can send to one person. Why? It says, ומשלוח מנות איש לרעהו. It says a man or woman to her friend or to his friend. משמע 2 gifts to one. וכל המרבה לשלוח מנות לרעים, הרי זה משובח. But if you want to give to more people, that's a beautiful thing to do. And of course, מכל מקום, he says, out of everything is better to do more tzedakah, more gift for the poor, and then give more seudah to people that, let's say you have 10 friends, says, I'm going to send 10 meals. So, we do mishloach manot. It's actually better to take, let's say, 2 of them, give 2 friends, or even 1 friend, 2 of them. And then the remainder is better to take the money that you're about to spend on those, 8 or whatever case of mishloach manot, this food, and take the money and give it to poor people, several poor people. And of course, אין שמחה גדולה ומפוארת לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא. There's nothing greater for Hashem to see that you help poor people and orphan and widows. So it says that, אין שמחה גדולה ומפוארת לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, אלא לשמח לב עניים ויתומים ואלמנות. So this is the greatest mitzvah, to make them happy, because poor people is really at a level that it's very, very hard to be every day. I always say we bless in the blessing of the parnasah that we sheniyeh min hamo'ilim, so we'll be the one to give rather than the people that ask for. So it says when he mesamech lev umlalim, it said when he make, when they receive money from you as a tzedakah, he said here $100 for, go do whatever you need for Purim. It makes them very, very happy. He says, domeh leShekhinah, it's like rising the Shekhinah, and Hashem sees that, shene'emar, le'achiyot ruach shefelim, u'le'achiyot lev nidka'im. He said, when you do that, you rise the simcha in the poor people's hearts, and how miserable they are every day, you give them a lift, and you really, it says it's like the Shekhinah rise above you. And of course, lo nikra manot ela davar sheroyu le'echol. You cannot do mishloach manot with something they cannot eat, right? So halacha is really to give them something that's ready to eat, not to start cooking and whatnot. And it's enough that they have like a meal, like give them meat and fish that's cooked already, not something that needs to be cooked, or sweet stuff, or fruit and wine and honey, things that really gives them a full meal. Kol adam עני שבישראל מקבל צדקה, חייב ליתן לכל הפחות 2 מתנות לשני עניים. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Zichrono Livracha, says, כל אדם, every person, even if you are poor, and you're receiving tzedakah, you have to take from your tzedakah enough to give 2 gifts to 2 poor people. So let's say you received $100, you can take 1/10 and 1/10, $10 and $10 and give them to poor people. דהיינו מתנה אחת לכל אחד, is giving each one their own present. Why? Because it's written, מתנות לאביונים, gifts for the poor, meaning at least 2. And of course, אין מדקדקים במעות פורים, אלא כל הפושט יד ליטול נותנים לו. Let's say in Purim, of course, you know, it's the month of Adar. When somebody asks you for tzedakah, don't ever send them empty-handed. And don't say, okay, let me give you, just give, you know, in generosity. Because, you know, Hashem give us to give. Because, you know, after all said and done, all of us, whatever we have is from Hashem. This is not by you. It's not lo kochi ve'otzem yadi. As we know, we have to remember one of the 10 principles every day is to remind ourselves it's not because of me and my power or my hard work. No, it's Hashem gave you. And what Hashem gives you, we need to give to others to help. And of course, and if there is no poor people, let's say you happen to be in a neighborhood, there is no poor people. Everybody's doing well, Baruch Hashem. So you have to hold this money until you can give them to poor people or send it to them. You know, you can go to a next door city. I'll go to the rabbi in a shul, says, do you have any poor people that we can give money to without insulting them? You just give it to the rav or to the gabbai to give to the poor people. Even women are obligated to send food to their friends and mishloach manot and matanot laevyonim. Women also obligated, it's not just for men. It says that a woman should send a woman and a man should send a man. But when it comes to gifts to the poor, a woman can give to a man as well, and vice versa. And of course, it says that the women should always get their husband involved in a mitzvah, and to give, if let's say a woman needs to want to give tzedakah or mitzvah to another man, it's better if she goes with her husband, of course. And of course, it's a mitzvah to eat and drink and to be happy on Purim. גם בליל 14 ישמח וירבה קצת בסעודה. As we know, on the 13th we have the fast, but on the 14th you have to do seudat mitzvah. And of course, this is after you open the fast, you eat. That's already the 14th because it's happened already after 3 stars. And it says, ירבה קצת בסעודה, do a little extra. If it's happened on מוצאי שבת, אף שצריך לעשות סעודה בשלישית בצורת, you know, when you have a 3rd meal on Shabbat, and you have Purim, Motzei Shabbat, don't eat too much on 3rd meal in order to have enough to do Seudat Leil Purim, to do the obligation of eating in the evening of Purim. Why? Because it's called Shtiyeh, Dechtiv Yemeh Mishteh, and it's a mitzvah to light candles, Derech Simcha V'Yom Tov, when you do the meal for Purim. And also in the Leil of the 15th, in the evening of 15th, you need to be happy. And of course, if you can give matanot laevyonim, as we say, gifts for the poor, and also mishloach manot. And it says that, let's say you have somebody that lives far from you, you can even send them money in advance so they have before Purim, or you can order food for them to receive before Purim. And this is a mitzvah that you can basically do from every location. And of course, עושים, מתפללים מנחה בעוד היום גדול ועושים את הסעודה לאחר מנחה. It's mitzvah to do the meal of Purim after mincha. And of course, we know that it says ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה. אורה is Torah, and simcha, it says, you know, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said this is סעודת mitzvah. And of course, כשחל בערב שבת עושים אותה בשחרית מפני כבוד השבת. So, you know, if you have the mitzvah of ערב שבת coming for Purim, you need to do the Seudah after shachrit. And of course, it's good to לעסוק קצת בתורה before you begin to eat. And לשמח דבר ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה. And we said that, יש לאכול מיני זרעונים בפורים. You have to eat some of seeds, like to remind us what the prophet Daniel and his friends in Bavel ate. And also that's what Ester actually did, because the Bavel exile was right before Purim. The people of Israel, after the destruction of the first temple that stood for 410 years, destroyed it. Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the grandson of King Solomon from Shiva, and he destroyed the temple, and then he took everybody out to Babylon, to Bavel, and for 52 years the people of Israel were in Bavel. And then Achashverosh, as we know that Achashverosh took over, and this is Parasumadai. That was 18 years after the 52 years of the exile of Bavel, and this is the exile of what we call Persia, and altogether 70 years. And both, Daniel and his friends ate just seeds in order to keep kashrut. So too Esther did. And it says, she even told her and taught her na'arotea, latov she'echila zer'onim. It said that Esther Amalka, she had 7 servants, female servants, and she named them by the days of the week. Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Revi, Chamishi, and every day that when somebody came, she knew what day it was. And she fed them also a lot of weeds and seeds and, barley and such, in order to keep them kosher. As we know, it says, Kevan shekol hanes haya al yedeh hayayin, the miracle of Hanukkah because of the wine. As we know, Haman got drunk, and of course Achashverosh got drunk, and Esther gave them wine, b'mishteh hayayin, and they got so drunk, and Achashverosh says, I want, the word they said, the Midrash says in the Gemara that all the ministers of the 127 countries were there in a mishteh that was 180 days, and at the end of that, Achashverosh says to them, I have the most beautiful wife. Everybody said, no, we have the most beautiful wife. So they ask them, Achashverosh, the other minister, asked him to bring Vashti, his wife, naked, to see her naked. The Gemara says she was a blonde, actually, a light-haired person. And Vashti, of course, wanted to. She had no problem, but the angel Gabriel put a tail on her, and she had leprosy. And she did not want to come out. And of course, Haman suggested to kill her. And so not all the women will be like her in 127 countries. And because of the wine, Esther became the queen thereafter. So it says, we have that, our Chazal says that it's good to get a little tipsy, not too much, not very, very careful. And it says, Chayav Adam levesume, Chayav Ansha levesume Puria, Ad lo yada ben Arur Haman ulevaruch Mordechai. It says you have to drink a little bit just to remember the miracle of the amazing miracle that happened in Purim, because you know why Haman was cursed and why Mordechai was blessed. And of course, it's not good to get drunk every time people got drunk in the Torah. If it's Adam, if it's Noah, if it's the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, always trouble. You got to be very careful not to get drunk. Okay? A person, as we said, if you, God forbid, you are in the morning of the Shiva during Purim, you also obligated to give matanot la'evyonim and mishloach manot. You have to give tzedakah and send food to your friends, even though you are in mourning. But don't do it in a way of happiness, because you have to mourn and you have to give respect to the dead person. By the way, when we say Kaddish, if you notice, there's nothing about the person that passed. It's everything about God. That's why I say it gadal v'yitkadash shemeh rabbah. If you look at these words, the first letter spelled the word yosher, right? Meaning the truth. It's all from Hashem exactly at the right time. And we said אין לעשות מלאכה בפורים. It says, do not work on Purim. It says, מי שעושה בו מלאכה, whoever works on the days of Purim, do not see blessing from this forever. It says, אינו רואה מאותה מלאכה, סימן ברכה לעולם. If you do work on Purim, you don't see blessing in that work. It's very, very dangerous. Be careful. Hashem will give you whatever you need, regardless if you keep the mitzvot and Torah. But if you have a goy that works for you, it's okay for them to do the job. And of course, it says you can write, let's say you want to write a nice igeret, a nice postcard to your friend, it's okay to do it. And וכן חובותיו וכל דבר שאינו צריך עיון גדול. If let's say you have to pay some bills, it's okay to do. And everything that has mitzvah in it is obligated to do even more. Especially for Purim. Mitzvot is to really, Purim is a huge miracle to the people of Israel, right? So we have to convey that to everybody else. On the 15th of Adar, it says Shushan Purim. We call it Shushan. By the way, there was a city, Shushan, in the Gemara, of course. Ve'ir Shushan Nevocha, and then Ve'ir Shushan Tzahala V'Samecha. And Omrim Tachanun. We don't say Tachnun on Purim on the 15th. And of course, we don't do all the related Lamnatzeach and whatnot. And is a minhag to give a little drink, l'simcha for Chaim, and of course,